welcome to certificate course in Dialogue Studies, week 6 and session 1. Today we have Manu Singh, and I'm very happy because apart from being a speaker, he's also a very good friend and a spiritual guide for me. I'll just introduce him. Manu Singh is the chairman of Sarva Dharma Sansad, New Delhi. In the past, he has served as the vice president and media secretary of the World Council of Arya Samaj. He was also a trustee of the Sarva Dharma Sansad, or Parliament of Religions. Manu, we are very, very excited to have you here, and we are all looking forward to hearing your session on dialogical living in Hinduism. And I would like to hand the floor to you now so that you can begin your session. You can conduct it however you want. There is usually a question answer session at the end, and so people can grill you a little bit. And so all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pragya. And as always, I think this is the 5th such session that I am attending from because of the great work that Dialogue is continuously and relentlessly doing. And it gives me not only immense pleasure, but also a very unique honor to be a part of this family of Dialogue, especially you and Behzad. Behzad has been not only a close associate in the field of interfaith dialogue, but also just like a younger brother. And of course, you've been a very close friend too. So this has been a very good association, and the way Dialogue, I've seen how it has grown into an organization, and how it is not only helping people, but also doing this very arduous and this very tough job of cultivating the spirit of interfaith and intercultural dialogue in young minds is truly commendable. So I congratulate Dialogue and you, Pragya, for moderating this session today. And I think I attend the topic, which is centers around Samvedic Jivanam, which is the dialogical way of living as per Hinduism. And can I request, I think there's some kind of sound, so can I request everyone to put their microphones on mute? Yeah, thank you. So before I begin, is it possible to have an interactive session rather than me just speaking? Pragya, do I have your...
Yes, absolutely. You can conduct the session whichever way you're comfortable with.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I would like to hear from at least 1 or 2 participants here first, what in their perception they mean by Samvaad, which is, I won't say it is loosely translated as dialogue in English. If they have a view about it, or if what is their perception about Samvaad, anyone. That includes you too, Pragya. I mean, anyone can participate. If they know the term Samvaad, what is the perception about it?
Is it, hello, is it message?
Huh? Message.
Okay. Message?
Can you please say your name? What?
Hi, I'm Reshmi.
Hi, Reshmi.
And today I'm off video. I'm a little unwell. I
okay.
look totally
yeah,
happy.
I can see that. I can see that. That's okay. That's
but
okay.
This picture is life size, so this is how big my face would look. So anyway, so Samvaad would be like, I think, a little more than a message. I would look at, I mean, if I would use the word Samvaad in a regular conversation with someone, when I'm having this conversation in Hindi, then I would use this word Samvaad to accentuate the inherent meaning or inherent emotion or a kind of feeling within the message that is there. So when I would say that I'm going to use Samvaad, then उसने ये संवाद दिया है तो it वो emotion के परे नहीं होगा. मैं ऐसे देखना चाहूंगी इसको.
Excellent. Very, very, very good. And thank you for including because, when I say dialogue, it generally is and logos, as I'm sure all of you know. Samvad also includes not only the logical, the rational, or the scientific temper part of the paradigm, but also includes other realms with it, which are of course, emotional intelligence, emotional understanding, of perceptions. It's a very holistic term. I will come to that slowly. But yeah, so Samvad, unlike dialogue, is basically, it comprises of two words, Sam and Vad. Now, is there anyone else with a viewpoint? I think somebody was typing a message. Pragya, can you read that out for everyone?
Yes, please. So Mona Lisa has said having an allied sharing of views on a topic, mostly value-based concepts.
Wonderful. Yes. So it's amazing that I do not have to delve into most of the definition, because I can see that you're pretty well added to that term. So I would now come to that description which I was telling you, that Sam and Vad. Now the word Vad is interaction. And interaction with the other. That is where we get confused, that whenever we use the term interaction, generally we think it is interaction with the other. But Vad is a very multi-layered term. And how it is very multi-layered is as per the concepts that are in the entire Vedic tradition. I mean, I can go into the mantras in detail, but I generally prefer telling it in forms of stories. That's my way of doing it. So we can go to the suktas, we can go to the mantras, but I generally like it in form of stories. Now, one of the stories that I really like to begin with describing Vad or interaction is a very beautiful story which illustrates the difference between heaven and hell. And how does it do that? So as per the concepts, as per the mythological or concepts of Hinduism, hell is known as Narkalok and heaven is known as Swargalok. So there was once this incident that somebody wanted to inquire about the differences, enumerate the differences, that how is Narkalok different from Swargalok? That means how is heaven different from hell? Now he goes to one of the mighty beings, and he sits in worship with that mighty being, and he's given a boon that he is allowed to visit both of them. So this guy is allowed to visit, and when he goes to Narkalok or hell, he sees that there is a beautiful round table where all kinds of amazing, delicious cuisines are placed. And he's sort of perplexed. He's like, how on earth is this hell? And then he sees that all the people who are living in hell, they come one by one, and they take their places. Now, each being who was there, his hands, there were two scapular-like straight woods that were tied, wooden planks tied to their hands. So the hand could not be folded. You're getting, the joints were fixed in such a way with those wooden planks that the hands could not fold from the joints and could not reach the mouth. So he immediately perceived that this is the most hellish thing that can happen, that you have the most delicious of offerings in front of you, you have the most delicious cuisines, but because your hands cannot fold from your joints, you'll be unable to pick them up and cherish them. So he kind of got the message. He's like, okay, I know what hell is now. Everything beautiful is in front of you, but you can't cherish it. So now he goes to heaven. In heaven also, there are amazing, delicious cuisines, same setup, everything same on the table. But he's pretty sure now when people will come, they'll have free hands. So freedom is heaven, and free and when you don't have freedom, that's hell. But to his utter dismay and his utter surprise, when the beings who were in heaven, they come, even their hands are tied. So he's shocked, he's perplexed. He's like, what's going on? How will these guys enjoy it? But the people, they sit next to each other, and since you cannot turn it from the elbow, they take the offering, and instead of putting it in their mouths, they feed the person next to them without turning their hands. And when the person takes care of the person next to him, the person who was on the adjoining side of this person was taking care of him. Eventually, all the delicious cuisine was enjoyed by the entire setup of people. So this is a very simple story, but it had a very deep message. And when you read the story in Sanskrit, it tells you about what Vaad is, or what interaction is. If your interaction with others is centered around care, compassion, mutual respect, then this earth, which is filled with amazing products and amazing cuisines and everything, is heaven. But if it is a selfish and self-motivated interaction, where you put only yourself, and not only yourself, but your thought process, your thinking, then this place is hell. So this was what otherness implies in our lives. And when I say this, there is another story. In fact, this is not a story, but an experiment from our modern world that actually not only cements this story properly in our subconscious, but also gives us scientific validation and logical explanation. I'll share that story in a bit. But this is the concept of Vaad, or interaction. Sam, on the other hand, means Samta. Samta, if I try and translate to you, would be the middle point between the English words of balance and equanimity. Right? Somebody's microphone is on again. Okay, before I delve deeper, one question is that I want the session, if anybody has any question, just switch on your microphone in between, like with the flow, although it's just beginning, I'm beginning with stories. But even then, if you have any question regarding anything, just switch on the microphone, and during the session only, you can shoot those questions at me, right? We will have a special place towards the end for question and answers, Q&A, but even now, if you deem fit, it's perfectly fine by me. Just switch on the microphone and I'll know that somebody wants to speak, and you can ask the question. Now, coming back to samatha. because that is the pivot around which Samvaad revolves. Samata is not only one of the basic concepts reached in the Vedic philosophy, it also is one of the key concepts in Gita. It is also one of the key concepts in Buddhism, and of course Jainism. The terms differ as per the language, but the basic concept is of clearing of the consciousness or chitta. Now, samta is, as I was saying, the middle point as per lingual meaning is concerned between balance and equanimity. And without having samta and vad, that is, without having balance and equanimity and care, compassion, love, it is actually prohibited to have samvad, which is what we exactly lack in our interactions today. The first basis of having a samvad is, of course, you have to share information, you have to share ideologies, you have to share stories and so many other things. But the key concept is that it should revolve around you being in a state of balance and equanimity, and also for the otherness, because otherness can never be separated from you. Another otherness is always a part of you. So, and why, how it is, I'll come to that. But let's establish the two pillars first, and then we'll try and keep our discourse around these two pillars. So, equanimity, balance, and from yourself, and again from yourself, radiation or emission of love, compassion, and care. I really like that even truth is secondary here, and that there are two layers. Even truth is secondary. First concept here is love for the otherness. Now, Samvad broadly gets divided into two parts. So it gets divided into two parts. One, the first part, and it is not only a part or first part, but it's a prerequisite to the second part. Without the first part, you cannot have the second part. So Samvad gets divided into two parts. The first part is Atmavad. And the second part is Bhahyavad, but it's not known as Bhahyavad. It's actually known as Namaste, or what we use as a greeting to greet anyone else in our literature, in our culture. Atmavad is dialogue or samvad with one own self. And that's a prerequisite to samvad. So what is Atmavad? Atmavad is the process of establishing samata, the middle point between balance and equanimity. How do you do that? That is achieved through having 3-4 basic steps. The first basic step is knowing yourself. Now, in knowing yourself or soul searching, there are several methods that one can employ. But what I, as a student of this literature, would suggest is the step of sadhana, or again loosely translated in modern English as meditation. And it is imperative that, unlike modern times, it's not it's imperative that you need to be a sadhak first before gathering or collecting information. So if you need to have dialogical living, the first step will always be sadhana. And what kind of sadhana? Any kind of sadhana. But the intent here is what I would say in English is soul searching, or knowing yourself. Now, how do you know that there are two basic methods of sadhana that have been prescribed? And if you enter any meditative realm, these two techniques will cross your paths. Number one is breathing techniques, because breath work is connected not only loosely but directly with your emotions, your understanding, and your states of existence. So knowing your breath work should not be confused with yoga or pranayama. Those are physical attributes, not attributes of samvad or sadhana. Of course, you need a very sound body for a sound mind to reside with that. That's separate, but that's a separate topic. Pranayama is something totally different. Having the awareness of your breathing, that is what is a part of sadhana. So, aware breathing all the time, trying to bring your attention on how your respiration is working, and just being and doing it on the guidance of two lamps. One lamp of detachment and the other lamp of observation. This in Sanskrit is known as drishtabhav. So inculcating drishtabhav through observing your breath. That means not evaluating your breath, not giving it a validation, but observing your breath, how it behaves when things around you or when your mood or stuff around you changes. So how you respond to stimuli as per breath work, how your breathing responds to stimuli, right? And the second part is observing, again, the same two lamps, the same two guiding lamps of observation and detachment. But now in the penumbric region is sensations that arise on the body. So these are the two parameters through which Atmavad is done. Why do we do this? Because as per our literature, which is not only there in the Vedas, it follows Gita, and also, as I said, in Mahabodhisattva or in Buddhism, you will find that whenever there is an interaction with matter or with conscious form of life, so either you have an interaction with matter or you have an interaction with sentience, there is a process that goes into the body. It's a four-pronged process. The first process is called Vigyan. So you see something. Suppose I see this remote control sitting right here. The first process that will happen is my eyes will see an object. This viewing is called Vigyan. It will see that it's an object, it's solid in nature, it has a black color. That's it. Vigyan is also known as science, but here it is the Vigyan, the science of looking at it. That's it, Vigyan. Now, the second thing that will happen is etymology or noun, which is called Sangya. After Vigyan comes Sangya, because now I know what it is. Sangya is, I named it, etymology. I know this is a remote control. So Vigyan, then Sangya. These two processes are effortless. Now comes the third process, which is called Vedana. So after Vigyan comes Sangya, and then comes Vedana, feeling. This is a different kind. Now, the first were very spontaneous. Even this process is spontaneous, but we can easily know that this is not as spontaneous as the first two were. Sensation. Whatever my past has been with this object, in this case, the object, or in the other case, a sentience, like my meet person. First Vigyan will happen. Okay, this is a person. The person is this tall, that, whatever. Then the Sangya, this is in Sangya itself, girl or boy. But the Vedana part is the feeling. whatever I feel. Till these 3 steps, it is a very natural process. No one can actually do anything about these 3 steps. The problem is the 4th step, which is not a problem at all, because that's what also makes us human, is the process of sanskar or conditioning. So if I have had a bad experience or a good experience with this object, with whatever we can call it, A or B, whatever my experience, my past experience has been with it, or if not past, I might have had a construct for a future experience. Say in case of a person, I've not met a person, I've heard a lot about a person, and I start constructing images in my mind. So that imageal construction, that is called sanskar. And that is what defines a lot of our interactions, because sanskar gives rise to Vedana, which is the 3rd step. Although it comes after, in the process, in the flowchart, it comes after Vedana, but that is the fertile land from where Vedana arises. So when we are in the act of sadhana, we ensure through Atmavad, through sadhana, through soul searching, that the influence of sanskar should be less. Why? Because otherwise, in terms of positive interactions, it's very good. You might think that if we clean our sanskaras, I mean, there is a lot of debate that, okay, let's have a very positive outset on life. Let's have a very positive frame of mind, and so our sanskars would be positive. But the point here is that for the process of dialogical living, Atmavad, it is very important that instead of concentrating on the positive or the negative part of it, that is why I said detachment, we need to concentrate on the part where we actually are free from samskaras. So, Sangya, Vigyan, Sangya, Vedana will happen naturally. Our preconditions, our conditioned mind should be less conditioned. That is the process of Atmavad. And why do we do that? Because as per the tenets of, again, I'm referring back to the Vedic literature, if I have a certain experiential living from past, which gives me certain kind of conditioning, I will not be able to engage in a total free interaction with not only myself, with an object, with nature, or with somebody else. So, Atmavad is the most important, and it's not only as I was discussing about the heaven and hell theory. If we look at things deeply, forget about having an interreligious or intercultural relationship. Just think about any relationship. Generally, we are not more than a viewer in a relationship. How does, and you might find it baffling. I mean, of course, when I asked about Samvaad, I got 2 very amazing replies. So when I say you, I am not addressing all of you, but the entire humankind. That eventually, if we look at relationship, we are looking at it as a 3D thing that's happening. How? So when I actually interact with someone, say, let's take a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. A, let's say her name is A. Let's not get into names and stuff. I try to form an image of that person in my head. That A is like this, she's like this, she's like this, she's like this, whatever whatever like qualities I asphyxiate on that person, that remain in my head, and they are actually in my head. Of course, they come from certain influence, but is somebody trying to ask something, or it's just another accidental?
I think when people join, their microphones are unmuted, so that's what happened.
That's okay. So when I have a relation, that was I was telling, so it's actually a lot in my head. And what happens is, if that person, so this is the person, imagine, and this is the image of that person. If that person behaves in a manner that in my head is generally not congruent with the image that I have myself constructed, I get troubled, right? So if I have imagined that this person is very truthful, but I come to know that from somewhere that this person has lied. Now, my imagination of that person being very truthful, and my imagination of the recent information, this congruency doesn't match, and it creates anxiety within me. And it happens most of the time. Sometimes there are positive things. You look at a person and you have judged that this person is, say, a coward. But then you see a brave act of that person. Again, it brings, if you like that person, of course, it brings happiness inside you. But the point here is that instead of having a direct relation with that person, we actually tend to have, in general, a relation with an image of that person that we have created in our own mind. Second, if this was also true, even this, if you look in detail, the thing is that you're not only creating, or we are not only creating an image of the other person, but we are also creating an image of our own selves in our mind. Right? Sometimes the natural tendency is not to be affected by certain things, but our culture has taught us or conditioned us to be affected by a certain act that this person has done. So if you look at it, we are actually creating our own image and the image of that person, in this case, as I said, my girlfriend. I'm just being an observer of the interaction of the two images and getting affected by it. Of course, if you look at direct or physical interactions, they are separate. But generally, I'm talking from the realm of the mind, that I am merely being an observer. And this is what I need to establish in Atmavad, which is called the observational reality. Detached observation is the thing that we need to cultivate during the process of Atmavad, which is prerequisite to Samvad. So, my entire intention while doing sadhana or Atmavad is first to clear my Manas Patal, which is called mind. Now again, Manas Patal is a very layered term because it also includes the body consciousness. So Manas Patal includes the mind consciousness, the consciousness of the mind and the consciousness of the body. They both are not separated. As per the tenets here, memory is actually a condition that is experienced all over the body, not only in the mind. So my intention here is to clear that Manas Patal or mind-body consciousness of all the conditionings, of all the imageal constructions which I myself have generated in my life. So once I can do that, properly. Yes, Mona Lisa, I will elaborate that slowly by various examples and further. Thank you. And as I said, you can just ask me because somehow I am doing this on a mobile. I could not log in on the laptop, so the questions are coming in a way that I put it on a screen that I can see everyone as possible. So the questions are coming in the tab below. I have to actually scroll it up, look at it. So just whenever you have to ask, just unmute your mic and shoot the questions. Anyways, so coming back to
break the flow that you were in. So that's why I didn't interrupt.
Yeah. Thank you. I got the question. So I have just started scratching the surface right now. So I will, of course, elaborate. Now, how does this work? How do our memories take us on this ride? And one of the examples that I really liked is there is a tale in Ramayana of the Kumbhakarna Palace, right, which describes the mind very beautifully. So just to give you a bit of a story, Kumbhakarna was one of the brothers. You know Kumbhakarna, anyone? So just to make it interactive, can you tell?
He used to sleep for 6 months, kind of.
Huh?
He was sleep for a long time.
Yes, exactly. He was one who used to sleep for a very long time. He was one of the brothers of Ravan. And Kumbh means a water pot and Karan means ear. So the metaphor here is that his ears were like a water pot, that anything you say would keep echoing inside him and he will know only when he wakes up. Yes, the man who understood the meaning of sleeping for long duration. Right. So anyways, he had a palace in a certain part of the planet where there was no daylight for 9 months, probably in Alaska. I'm sure he didn't go to Alaska, but somewhere there. So he had a huge palace there. And this palace, since Kumbhakarna was very lazy, he just kept one guide who could actually traverse across the palace. And the palace had about 380 rooms. So for 9 months, there was darkness in that area. And the palace is actually, it actually symbolizes the human mind, right? And the guide, her name was Drishti. She had a lamp. And now how Kumbhakarna describes is that my palace might have 380 rooms, but I only know of the room where my drishti goes. That means not drishti also means vision, but he is not saying my drishti. He is saying that where the lady with the lamp goes, only that castle is illuminated, because most of the time it's completely dark. So there's a beautiful bedroom, but Kumbhakarna does not know about the bedroom. Only when Drishti goes to the bedroom and illuminates that area, does he see, oh, there's a beautiful bed here, there's a lovely relaxing chair, there is a nice dressing table, whatever. And the same way, when she goes to, say, the kitchen part, he sees how there's a wonderful kitchen and wonderful things to eat when she goes to the store. So the point here is that similarly, our mind is like that palace of Kumbhakarna. It has not 380, but several thousand rooms. And wherever our awareness goes, that area is enlightened and those memories are elucidated. And not only as per our interaction, I told you the 4 steps of Sangya, of Vigyan, of Sangya, of Vedana. Not only there, the same process is followed when our awareness goes to, say, a memory in a room where our memories from our childhood are placed. immediately the memory would come in front of us. Immediately we'll recognize and name the memory, and immediately we will have the Vedana or the feeling associated with that memory, which is generally called nostalgia, right? So that can influence a lot of things. I can give you personal examples. I was born in Dehradun, and even now when I go there is this place that sells, pardon my language, but the shittiest golgappas that I've ever had. I've traveled across India after that, and there are several places, especially in Kolkata and Bihar, they are much better. But even now, when I go, I make it a point to eat those golgappas because I enjoyed them when I was a kid. Same way, there might be movies that you will actually laugh on yourself when you look at them now, but you will enjoy them because you enjoyed them when you were young. This is a feeling of nostalgia. This is our awareness going into the room where our childhood memories are stored, and because they get illuminated, we get the same sense of enjoyment. And it happens in all the regards. Sometimes and I'm talking about cases where, say, you're hurt eventually by two or three guys, or in case of guys, 2 3 girls have hurt you. If you have an interaction with, say, a third person, she has not or he has not done anything even close to what you have experienced, but eventually your mind will immediately trigger the same anxiety, the same trauma, the same depression. Oh my God, the same cycle is getting repeated. This is a different person. There's no cycle that is repeated. Probably this person doesn't know that person who's given you those memories, but it is your drishti going into the past memories of your room and illuminating that room and bringing the same Vedana out. And that's where I told you sanskaras are also the things that make us human, because this emotional upsurge is actually what makes us human. It isn't. Let's not judge it here. It is a process that happens in our brain. So the key to Atmavad is not clearing our rooms. Okay. A lot of people think, okay, let's clear this stuff out. No, it's a part of our life. The first key is detached observation. Second is non-judgmental attitude, which is that you do not validate things, events as per good and bad. And this is an internal process. Please don't associate this with anything social process that I will talk about further. We cannot have social processes not being judged. This is an internal process. This happened. This is happening. These are the linguas that we train our mind to associate ourselves, to associate with our interactions in the Atmavad. So the key here is not to clean the rooms, but to actually have a control on the drishti. I mean, I'm not Kumbhakarna, so I don't have a drishti, but to have control on the awareness. And that is why the simple process of merely observing our breath work and observing our sensations, not judging them, that is the process how we control our awareness. And it is very important, not only for Vad, which is there to follow interaction with the otherness, but also our personal development. Like from being young, we were asked by our parents or by our teachers that study with concentration, right? But just think which period we were taught science, we were taught arts, literature, everything. Which period did actually a teacher come in our classroom and taught us how to concentrate? All the parents are doing this. We are asking our kids, okay, you have to study with concentration. But how to concentrate? Nobody's teaching that. And without taking control of that awareness, it is improbable that a child will learn how to concentrate. So it is not only necessary for interaction with the other, it is very, very important for our own development to stay in control. For example, okay, you must stay in control. Now, okay, you've told me I must stay in control, but how? If you've not taught that, how do you expect? You've taught me how to take out LCM and HCF, which I'm not using in my life at all. But you've not taught me how to concentrate, how to be self-control, and you are expecting. This is very strange, and I really hope that our educational system addresses all of these behaviors. So the point here is that and is it, ask yourself, is it possible? I mean, there are a lot of people who talk science behind it. Of course, I can start telling you that the Berger waves are emitted from this part of the hippocampus of the brain, and this is the amygdala. The gray cell concentration around the amygdala influences this and that. Of course, you will know intellectually if it's possible or not. That will not help you. But is it possible? Of course, it's possible. If you go to a good cinema, if you watch a wonderful movie, what is the director doing? Say, okay, I like good cinema. One of my favorite movies is Beautiful Mind, or whatever. Think about your favorite movie, and whichever movie. What happens if you witness that movie? You will feel a particular kind of sensation. You will feel love. You will feel pain. You will feel sadness. You will feel happiness. That's what a good director does. A good director charges me 350 rupees in India in a good cinemaplex. And what he does with those 350 rupees, he controls my drishti or my awareness and takes him to, say, a scene where there's romance going on. He'll guide my vision into a room of my romance, and I will feel romantic. He will guide my room into my own awareness into a room of, say, anxiety, and I will feel anxious. That's what good director does. Now, the point here is, all we have to do is not pay 350 to someone else, but be the good director of our own awareness. If he can do that, that means it's possible. The only thing here is I need to teach myself to do that. And the only way here is to inculcate detached observation, to be in the drishtabhav or the observational reality rather than in the bhoktabhav or the affector's reality. This is the separation that we are taught in the Atmavad. That if you are in drishtabhav, you will look at things as they are. Right? And that is when, oh my God, it's already been an hour. I have another half an hour just to finish it. Okay, so continuing this. So now the second part of it, or the namaste part of it. I hope you're taking notes. It's Samvaad divided into Atmavad and Namaste. Now, what does Namaste means? Once it is established that these are the processes that go inside me, these are the processes that affect me, right? First of all, I will rise above those affectors. Like, I get hurt when somebody says bad stuff to me. If instead of getting hurt over and over again and try to intellectually decode it, I'll reach nowhere. But, and this is what if I start observing it, okay, what happens when I feel pain? How does my breath react? What sensations do I have? And keep observing those breath and sensations over and over again. I will mitigate the effects of sadness or feeling hurt on me. But once I do that, I will also establish the fact within me that this is the same cycle that goes on in somebody else. So this is a two-pronged approach. Prong one is I am healing myself of that effect, and also realizing that how difficult it is to be in such states, and then also telling myself in the form of namaste that I should not put somebody else in that state. Because namaste is, we say namaste, and can anyone tell me what it really means? Anyone? Just switch on your mic and tell me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am a big fan of Vedas and I'm really enjoying this. So thank you so much for, I mean, I don't have words, namaste, because that is what it means, is I give the respect that I want to give to my Lord, to the bigger being, to the bigger purpose, not only to me, but to you.
Yes.
So that is what is namaste, and I really want to say namaste, Manuji.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Excellent explanation. So it simply means I bow down to the divinity inside you, which is in me also. Right? Now, the key word is divinity. Now, divinity encapsulates everything. Everything created, every attribute of the creator, everything, which means that through you, and you are not saying any particular person, but my interaction with anyone. The moment I am interacting, the other person becomes what? There's a specific term widely misused in our culture, but the other person of interaction, even if that person I presume is my enemy, or if that person is my friend, it doesn't matter. My interaction to the otherness through namaste will make the other person my guru. Guru is made up of two syllables, gu and ru. Loosely, people say this is gu means darkness and ru means prakash. Prakash means light. So anyone, and I'm not saying friend or enemy, I'm saying human or animal, matter or sentient, the moment my interaction happens with someone else, with otherness, it automatically places that person as my guru. That is, it is my intent and my awareness now that through this interaction, I should be led from darkness to light. And that is why the two terms, the gu and the ru, comes from two separate words, gunapitam and ruparahitam. Gunapitam means something that encapsulates all the gunas or the qualities. So a reservoir of all the cosmic qualities. Like I am, same way the other person is. But sometimes in the process of Atmavad, I might not be able to witness all of that in me because I have a limited capacity. But the moment I look at the other, I will see more cosmic qualities. The cosmos is, so as per the Rig Veda, the cosmos is the complete. It's in a state of soup where everything is there in form of energy, and energies give rise to vibrations, which are qualities. So through quality, you can understand energy, matter, and consciousness. Anyways, not getting into depth in that because again, I have less time now. So once I know that the other person is exactly like me, a reservoir of qualities of the cosmos, that is Gunatitam, and Rupa Rahitam. It should not be affixed to a Rupa or a form. That means I should not affix these qualities with a Rupa or a form. That means that person or that matter or that being, it can be anyone. It can come in any form. It can be a boy or a girl. It can be an animal. It can be a dog. It can be a tree. The moment I interact, it is my intention to first and foremost, through Namaste, establish that that's the Guru, and then with my awareness, lead that interaction with the intent that I personally will move from. I personally, it's not my job to ensure that the other person will personally move. No, 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 no. Awareness, Atmavad, I have to make a pledge that I personally will move from darkness to light. That is Namaste. So, just quickly enumerating what we've learned together is that number one, it's the first precept is to start an inner dialogue. Through our breath awareness, breathing, and being aware of our sensations, inculcate a sense of observational reality. And then when I interact with the other, understanding that the same divinity that flows through me, the same qualities are also in the other person, and realizing with utmost awareness and intent that this interaction will be of respect and love. Okay? And as I told you the story of heaven and hell, I'll tell you a modern version also, and why it is important. The concept of Samvaad is that you have to be equanimous. You have to be equanimous. And what is the purpose of our existence on this planet, which is called Bhulok or Mrityulok? The Mrityulok means the land of the dead, right? Not the zombies movie Land of the Dead, but actually the land of the dead, which means whichever sentience will come here will perish. So the job of an individual or being here is to attain Satchidanand. Attainment of Satchidanand, right? Has anybody discussed this concept before? This is the purpose of a jiva. Now, when sometimes things get translated, they lose the essence. Of course, Satchidanand means Lord, God, Almighty. But you have to understand the qualities. We are asked, here the Sukta had asked to attain Sat, Chit, and Anand. Anand is happiness, a state of bliss. So the job, the work, the errand given to an individual soul is to attain Anand, but through Sat and Chit, through truthfulness and consciously. So we must do work that truthfully and consciously we attain Anand.
Reshmi had a question.
Yes, Reshmi.
Thank you, Pragya. It's not a question because you asked that did anyone hear this term Satchidanand? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to look at a word which is so Satchidanand is a word which is used in the Sanatan Dharma. Okay. And we use it like the Satchidanand, but we don't really trifurcate it into Sat, Chit, and Anand. I just want to know that if there would be parallel, similar words which are similar in nature and similar in description, belongs to some other religion. And can this essence be transported and understood in a more secular way?
Interfaith. See, one of the things, it's a very good question. I am not an authority to comment on other religious texts, but there are several such words, I'm sure, in other languages also. But as you've heard the word Satchidanand, you would also have heard that this word is generally goes with another word, that's Satchidanand Swarup. right?
Right. Sachidanand Swarup.
It is that Swarup of the Lord. That means that when we are praying, or when we are praying to the Lord, we are particularly taking out three attributes and praying for the attainment of that Swarup only. There are other Swarups also, right? Lord Shiva is destructive in nature. There is Vinashak Swarup also. But that is not our job to pray and be like because, if you look into the construction of Sanskrit literature, praying is a very specific term. We use the term upasana, right? Where asan, asan is level. So you sit on the asan means please sit on the level that I have laid out for you. Asan means level, and up is achieving. Like upanayan, having another vision, is the upanayan sanskar. From today, I will have a spiritual vision. That's another vision. So achieving. So when we do upasana of the Satchidanand Swarup, we are making sure that we will try to be at the level of that Swarupa. What is that Swarupa? Is being in a state of Anand through truthful nature and being conscious. So when you're conscious and you're truthful and you achieve Ananda, you might achieve Ananda through other means also. You can be untruthful and achieve Ananda, but that not be Satchidanand Swarup. You can be unconscious, you can hurt others and achieve Anand. There is sadism in the world, but that's not what the intent should be. The intent should be is to accumulate Anand truthfully and consciously. And the same things come when it talks about in the Upanishads. This is a Vedic thing. As you see, the entire structure is formulated in a way from realization of reality at a grosser level to a subtler level. So when you talk in the Upanishad, the purpose of lives are four-pronged: Arth, Dharma, Kam, and Moksha. Right? Now, moksha is something that you get after you've achieved these three things. And moksha is not something like, it is again, it's a simple word, which is moh and shay. That is, when you are free of attachments, that's moksha. But because of stories and because of metaphorical misrepresentations, we think that when we get free from the cycle of birth and life and whatever. No, it's described in a very simple way. Moh ka shay, which is moksha. And arth, dharma, and kam. Now, dharma is, we all know the precepts of dharma: satya, prem, karuna, nyaya. Right? Truth, love, compassion, and justice. Arth is accumulating wealth and popularity and resources. But how? In a dharma sangat way. As per the precepts of truth, love, compassion, and justice, you are allowed to accumulate wealth and popularity. Calm is enjoying that wealth and popularity, but again, through only being bounded by the pillars of truth, love, compassion, and justice. So when we look at these words, we must understand what is the etymology of these words, because generally what has happened in modern days, we've started confusing a lot of terms, right? For example, say a term like brahmacharya. Now, if I ask you, what does brahmacharya means? Anyone just switch on the mic and give me a reply.
So it would be Brahma plus Acharya.
Yes,
so,
very good.
So
Brahmacharya, but generally celibacy isn't celibacy implied as brahmacharya?
No, I mean, I won't see it like that.
Yeah, of course.
I would see it like the control of the Brahma, basically control of the self. So Acharya means someone who is the teacher, someone who has self-control, basically. That is why it is connected to celibacy.
A wonderful answer, but the actual word is Brahma plus Charya. Brahma is the wisdom of the Lord or divinity, and Charya is to grahan karna, or to accept. So once you accept the wisdom of divinity or the cosmic wisdom in your life, that process is called brahmacharya. That is another explanation. But eventually, loose translations have converted brahmacharya into celibacy and dharma into faith. That is another loose translation. Similarly, when we talk about Satchitanand, generally it is like, okay, let's go do a prayer in front of any deity and light your incense sticks, and that's it. The concept here was to have the upasana of the Satchidananda Swarupa, which is, okay, I take a pledge from today that from today onwards, when I interact, and we have a lot of people who do not understand Hindi and Sanskrit. But if you look at the Vedic yagya or havan, if you look at how it begins and how it ends, it's actually nothing but a pledge that we take, that we are going to help the other in this way and that way, and thus end up helping our own selves. Because the other is an extension of the cosmos, which we are. So if we are putting good things into us, the same way when we put good, not only matter into the other, but thoughts and intentions, it eventually is goodness coming back to me. And the yagyas were always a pledge. I mean, again, shortage of time, otherwise I can have an entire discourse explaining each and every mantra of the yagya, that this is how it should be conducted and this is how it should go. And it has nothing to do with praising the Lord. It is mostly 95% a pledge that we take so that we can have a great conduct in life towards not only ourselves, but nature, animals. And that is why you see the Shanti mantra, which the yagya generally ends. It prays for Shanti, which is the final prayer, for everything possible in our imagination also, right? Everything, from the water world to the fishes to the space, everything. So that was the intention of building all this literature. But eventually, with time and with unmindful repetition, what has happened is that we've gone into a culture where we just don't understand certain meanings, and we keep repeating stuff that we've not delved into, which is again a part of Samvaad, because observational detached awareness will eventually lead us into investigation. So coming back to the original flowchart of my Samvadic living, is that the story I was trying to tell is that how it is very important that if, okay, say for a dialogue practitioner, it might be important, but is it important for every single being? Yes, because all of us want to live in heaven and earth, on earth. If we do not develop or inculcate this sense of samvadic living, the contrary is hell. We'll be burning ourselves in anxieties and stress and disorders and addictions. And as I was trying to mention, once, scientists in the late 1940s, they wanted to study, say, addiction. What they did is that, to ensure that they know how this works, they took a rat and put it in a cage. And they put 2 cups of water. After a few days, one of the cups of water was spiked with heroin. Right? Now, once the rat tasted the heroin water, it kept coming back to that water and eventually became an addict and soon died. So scientists in the 1940s determined through this experiment that if you keep tasting a drug that has the capacity of influencing your hypothalamus in a way that it learns into addiction, you will become an addict, and eventually you'll be a slave to that particular psychotropic substance. So what happens in the 1970s is the Pavlovian thought on animal brain came into being. So this experiment was questioned. they looked at this experiment and said, why did you keep the rat alone in a cage? That's the problem. So now the experiment was repeated. Now, instead of a cage, they made a huge room into a rat park, right? There were things the rat could do. There were games the rat could play. And there were other rats. So it could indulge, interact with the other rats, have sex with the other rats, make babies. It had an entire ecosystem, which was like a rat park. It was perfect heaven. Now, when the experiment was repeated in this particular scenario, the rat stopped going to the heroin-laced water, which was shocking. So the entire scientific, or in that matter, the psychological world, it changed its purview. It says, okay, addiction is not something that happens because you get addicted to a substance. It is actually that there is a sense of hollowness inside a person, which is not addressed properly. And in this case, what is it? I mean, in this case, if you feel that sense of hollowness or incompleteness because your interactions with other beings or matter or nature goes awry, you might get addicted to heroin. You might get addicted to your own particular sense of doing something. I mean, I have a tendency of getting addicted to my mobile. And not only me, we all have the addiction. Does not come from being slave to something. Addiction comes when there's something lacking in a human, and not only human, in this case, a rat could even figure that out. In our human interaction with other humans, in our human interaction with our own self, in our human interaction with other species and nature. So
there's just I'm interrupting and just adding a little thing about Portugal, which a few years ago decriminalized addiction, and instead they said that you can have addictive substances, it's okay, but they try to rehabilitate addicts back into the society and form meaningful relationships. And despite drugs being legally available, the addiction fell from 100 from whatever number it was to 33% of what the original number was. So it kind of goes with what you said.
Well, not only that, in 1981, a lot of substances were, including marijuana, was criminalized in India. And since 1985, there has been a continuous rise in the cases of abuse. Now, what is happening? A person is feeling hollow and somehow getting attracted to a substance to ensure that that hollowness is pacified, because it hurts deeply inside. And what do? We try to punish him for feeling unloved. We try to take love even further away from that person. That's a very negative approach, and that is why it is very important that first and foremost we understand our own selves, love our own selves as we truly are, without judging what our urges and our cravings are, and then extending the same namaste to the other, respecting the same divinity and principles of divinity in the other. Anyways, the point here was that Samvaad is not only imperative for the success of, say, a student like us who's into the realm of cultural and interfaith dialogue. It is an imperative for everyone because it will be the guiding principle for your interaction with any form of life or matter. And this approach of mindfulness, this approach of meditative living is what we try to inculcate through Samvadic Jivanam or dialogical living as per the tenets of Vedic literature, Buddhism and Jainism. Thank you. That should end what I have to say, but I'm sure I have also deliberately left a lot of lacunas, and I'm sure that some of you would address them. Also, I am very keen on listening to not only your questions, but comments if there are any. So I give back the, as she said herself, floor, because we are still living in a post-COVID scenario, and we are still coming to terms. But yeah, it would have been wonderful had I done it face-to-face with all of you. But that's how the world has transformed. So I give this floor back to Pragya. And Pragya, can you please moderate the Q&A session now?
Thank you so much, Manu. This was enlightening. A lot of things. Reshmi already has a question, so I'm going to give it to her. Reshmi, you can ask your question.
So the question may sound controversial, and your lecture has made me extremely uncomfortable because I belong to a religion which is so dominant, and then we don't practice what you were sharing today. We really don't practice this. So I mean, it is so difficult to separate the philosophy and political religion. So I am uncomfortable not because you were speaking and what you were speaking, but I am uncomfortable that this exists and we are not aware of it, and we are kind of making this whole system of understanding of the human relationship with the spiritual world so problematic and so conflicted. In that context, I want to really situate that this particular conversation or dialogue that you had extended to us in this forum, part of this forum is dialogue studies. So a lot of us who do not belong to the Hindu religion would probably be keenly interested to understand how the Vedic literature is being explained from the top-down approach. What if the same lecture you would be giving elsewhere? What is the intent of this lecture? Like, what is the intent? What is the intent that you carry in your heart when you're extending the understanding of Vedic literature? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that wonderful question. Now, when I was also speaking, I said very clearly that what I am talking about being non-judgmental is about an inner transformation journey. And I did not mention, and I specifically pointed out that it's not relating to social structures or problems that the society is facing. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, for example, it talks about the same concepts in a lot of ways, but it also talks about being, as you said, and I'm happy that you use the word controversial, that you use the word that you get uncomfortable. The same thing when you see the other subjugating somebody else, oppressing somebody else, using any form of birth-based identity, religion, gender, caste, color, subjugating somebody else or oppressing somebody else. It is also a dharmic viewpoint to feel agitated, to feel controversial, and actually to respond in the proper way. So the intent here is to ensure that you don't react. You must respond to whatever is happening. If you, as per your thought, feel that there's something malicious going on in the name of religion, because I understand, you see, I echo your thoughts very well, and I forget me, Krishnamurti ji echoed it very well, that to be well adjusted to a morally corrupt and sick society is a sign of sickness, not of health. So if you feel a sense of discomfort and sense of controversy about all the malicious agenda that's going on, then I'm happy that you are a healthy individual, because it means that the dharmic values inside you ask you to address those problems. The point here is, what I have tried to achieve is that don't react, respond. Reaction is is okay. Reaction to violence should be violence. See, that's the problem statement. You can't become fighting something that you're fighting against. We must respond. And particularly in the case of religion. See, religion is a very multi-layered concept, right? Now, what happens is that, of course, it all begins with a spiritual spark, or what we call as dharma ka jo janmdata hai wo adhyatma hai. That means spirituality is the mother of any religion. So the basic religious values are always born out of spiritual values. But then religious also became a very cultural part. It became a cultural expression. And when that manifestation of culture collided with commercial interests, what happened is that we threw away the baby with the bathwater. We surrendered our religious values to beings, to individuals who just use it to oppress, subjugate, and actually earn profits for us. And that is why it's nothing but now we have capitalistic religions that work only on, say, certain areas which are resource rich areas, and they use religion to subjugate those people there so that their resources can be easily extracted. It's nothing, there is no dharma in it. Only the term dharma is used. The same way in Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare has illustrated very beautifully that eventually the devil will take the form of will take the Bible in his hand and preach the Bible, will actually be the devil. In a parallel, there is a darshan which I discuss. I don't know if Basit Bhai has already taken your class or not, but he will also discuss. And in darshan also there is a very interesting story about a bee and a wasp, that they both look alike. They both have the same structure, same tendency, same sound, but one produces nectar and the other produces venom. So don't surrender religious values to people who just use differences to somehow cultivate profits or to somehow use it for their own nefarious purposes. Let's develop Atmavad so that our vivek and our vision and our awareness gets properly empowered, and we can look at these religious and spiritual values for the betterment. One of my gurus is Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and one of his statement was very clearly, Ved is above everything, but not over Vivek. Vivek is something given to you by the Lord himself. It is the attribute of Lord inside you. So if your personal wisdom rebels against something going on in the society, it is your dharmic path, it is your dharmic precondition to trust that wisdom. And this should be the testament to everything. If there is some confusion in a particular religious book that somebody is using to manipulate any human, the human should eventually think, because as per, again, Vedic traditions, it's the same spark that the Lord has that is inside me. So if that is somehow not resonating with what your sense of justice is, please ignore it. It is something that should make you uncomfortable, should make you first go and read those things, understand those things. And if you don't like them, please dispel those things from your thought and ask others to do the same.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manu. I request other participants to ask their questions and share their comments.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
It's very pleasure to hear you.
Akansha, right?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
Akansha. So, it's not just a question, but it's related to like when we be in a state of when we do namaste to others, so we include nature, matter, like every small entity of the universe. So when we be in that form of dialogue or samvad to others, there are some response from others.
Mhm.
Like they respond. But in the case of nature, where we can say nature reveals itself, but I really want to hear from you, your answer or your attitude, like how nature respond to us when we in a dialogical or when we in a samvad to the nature itself.
Okay, thank you. That's a very, very, very interesting and also very deep question. Thank you, Akanksha, for that. You know, now nature is something that constructs you, not only without, but within, right? So you divide it into two parts, your nature and the nature without. When I said Atmavad, it is actually nothing but understanding your nature in by being an observer. Once you do that, your interactions with nature will change. The first thing, when you follow this process, and you will realize certain things. Like, for example, I'll ask you, what is the opposite of, say, fear?
To have courage.
Excellent. Now, see, that's a very lingual, uh, right, answer
Yes.
that you gave me.
Yeah.
But if you look deeply, courage is actually suppressing your fear through training, right? The opposite of knowledge the opposite of fear will always be knowledge. Suppose I'm sitting in a classroom with you and a snake enters. You getting my point? There'll be two kinds of individuals. A person will be very afraid of the snake and he'll run out of the class, right? Damaging the entire piece of the class. Now, there might be another person who just picks up a rod and kills the snake. Not right now, but 100 years ago, the first act was an act of cowardice and the second act was an act of courage. But if you scan deeply, both the acts have actually brought about pain and suffering for someone. Now, suppose there's a third person who knows about snakes. Knowledge is there, right? He looks at a snake, or she looks at a snake, and oh, this is not a venomous snake. And I know the nature of the snake. If you don't disturb it, it won't do anything. And not only does that person know that knowledge informationally, like Google, but also know it experientially because he knows snakes and all other species that they're bound by the same logic. He will just look at the snake and let it mind its own business, or maybe call somebody who's adept enough to take that reptile to some safe location. This is what knowledge does to you, or this is what Atmavad does to you. Knowledge is also divided into three parts. Suchana, which is information, Gyan is divided, and wisdom, which is your inbuilt your inbuilt method. So when information is passed through your inbuilt method, the crux that you get is Gyan or knowledge, which is different for different because the Suchana is the same for everyone, but the inbuilt method of everyone is different. So your Gyan is different from my Gyan. But eventually, the property of Gyan is to not only remove ignorance, but in this case, fear. Once you know, you know. So your interactions, see, the thing is, we live in a very vibrational reality. And this is a fact that I'm telling you. A person who afraid and runs away from a certain animal, that animal, generally, it's a predatory instinct to run after and chase beings, right? That animal will also show aggression towards that person. There are several videos you can see how even giant elephants, when they are on rampage and they attack, especially these guys who are working for Discovery, these scientists just stand their ground, sometimes just clap and say no and shout, and the animal is easily uh, easily subdued, not using any method of aggression. This happens only through knowledge. This happens only through Samvaad. This cannot happen through Suchana or mere information. I mean, you can Google a lot about, okay, lions are like this, lions are like this. But the moment you'll actually see a lion, or in this case, a stray dog, you would know, like I work with the animals a lot, right? So I know that barking is actually communication. But for a general person who's upset by fear, who's not into Atmavad, barking is an act of aggression. Sometimes dogs also show love through barking. Sometimes they are just inquiring. And if you just reply back in a very calm demeanor, in a very calm manner, that, okay, I don't mean any sense. What's your problem? Right? Like my response is, beta kya hua? Problem kya? The dog immediately calms down. This happens only through Atmavad, which is assessing information through your through the apparatus of your wisdom, which is inside you. So your interactions with nature will change immediately. Not only nature without, but nature within. You will respond to pain differently. You will respond to fear differently. You will respond to stress and anxiety differently. You will respond and you will not react. And this is the key. I mean, more than humans, this is more important because I'm sorry, I'll take 5 more minutes responding to this question. If say there's a glass of water here and I'm drinking that glass of water, right? I drop that glass and it shatters into a lot of pieces. While picking those pieces up, one of the splinters of the glass, it enters my palm, right? So what's the knowledgeable Atmavadi thing to do here? I will take this splinter out, I will wash it and apply some medicine, or maybe leave it. I'm pretty much in still that age where my platelets are pretty good, and within 3-4 days that injury would actually be gone completely. Might be a mark or something, but it won't trouble me. That's called Atmic living. That's Atmavad. But sometimes my relation with my nature is different. What if I say, oh my God, what has happened? No, this is a terrible stuff. And I hold my fist like this and I'm like, no, I can't let go. The splinter would keep getting in deeper and deeper. And eventually, after a few days, there'll be gangrene. My limb has to be decapitated, And if I don't do that, the gangrene and the infection would kill me. This is unnatural living. Now, who would do that? In the case of matter, 99% people will not do that. But just think about this scenario. What happens when we get hurt? When somebody says something that is actually like a glass splinter that enters our consciousness and causes pain. A lot of the time, we've conditioned ourselves to actually hold on to that thing. It keeps repeating in our mind, and we think, okay, next time if he says this, generally it's not going to happen. But we will relive that same thing over and over again. We'll not open our fist and clean our wound. We'll do the unnatural part and we'll keep suffering that. And that will change. If a person is actually holding a splinter, if you talk to that person, he will be abusive because he's suffering the consequences of pain. But if he's already cleaned it and he's happy, he'll talk to you in a very normal way. That is how our interactions with not only material form of nature, but nature as thought changes. And it is very important for all of us to inculcate this feeling of samvadic living or meditative living, because these things are very important. And with time, we have unfortunately conditioned ourselves. Like, if I tell you a joke, a very beautiful joke, right? You will laugh at it once. If I say the joke again, you might laugh at it again. But the fourth time and fifth time, you'll be like, what a stupid guy. He keeps repeating the same joke, right? But look at what we do with, say, insults. Once somebody has insulted you, you felt bad, let it go. We'll keep repeating in our head and keep ourselves in a constant state of trauma. We'll keep reliving that moment over and over. I mean, one joke told to us second time will not make us laugh, but an ordinary insult, we will keep telling that insult to us over and over again and keep ourselves in that state for a very long time. This is unnatural living. And that is why Atmavad is very important, not only for our natural existence, but the entire nature around us. I mean, look at all the birds and animals. I was reading this report yesterday that since 1975, we have, shockingly, and it actually pains me a lot, 69% of the species have been forced to the brim of extinction. This is unconscious living manifested in the social reality. All these beings are just concerned with their air conditioners, with their petrol-driven cars. There is no conscious approach to it. And this is what capitalism feeds on. Crony capitalism feeds on this. Once we start adopting the approach of mindful, conscious living, that is the only way defeating capitalism. Otherwise, other ideologies have tried to defeat it, but eventually been reduced to the same capitalistic market culture, hasn't it? We've seen so many experiments repeated over so many nations. And a small deflection from the regular thought process can actually transform nations. Pragya gave you the example of Portugal. In one case, I give you example of say, Bhutan, a nation that actually, if you look at it economically, is economically backward, but is one of the happiest nations in the world. Why? Because it does not counter GDP as a growth indicator, but counts happiness index. So just these small changes, just having a conscious approach, it might sound aggravated, but these small changes of approach will not only transform individuals, but individuals are the building block of societies and nations and kingdoms. They have the ability to transform everything. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you so much for this beautiful response. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing I recall from that fear and courage thing between the knowledge, the middle path of Buddha or the things.
Exactly.
Thank you, Akanksha. We still have time, so if anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to ask them.
I think somebody typed something. I couldn't see that when I was answering.
So Reshmi was just thanking you for the session, and Mona Lisa also mentioned to me privately that she's actually feeling quite alive with the entire session.
Thank you, Reshmi, and thank you, Mona Lisa.
Hello.
Mona Lisa is already. Yeah, go ahead,
Arafat. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have seen many religious texts, whether Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. Every religion talks about nice things, but when it comes to practice, it becomes like hellish.
Yeah.
One community another after another, everyone defining his own ideologies or thoughts, and we are lacking to be good humans. You are being discriminated on the basis of your religion, your color of the skin, caste, and many other things. So how you look at these things? How can somebody at his personal level can overcome such? Because we can ignore once, twice. Somebody is making comments on your religion, on your region, on your ethnicity, and repeating same things. Once a joke becomes toxic as you have repeated. So how can one at the personal level can overcome such things?
Okay. Thank you, Arafat. Thank you. Thank you very much for asking that question. Now, this is what the entire intent of the session was. That we need to understand that we are looking at a problem that have existed throughout our human history, right? The problem here is, again, of having a conscious living or having a life driven by subconscious. Now, what happens? Even a criminal knows what is good and bad. I also know anger is something that will burn me and then the other. Where do I know this? I know this on the conscious part of my brain. A criminal also knows this. A person who's committed murder also knows this, who's in the jail, that this was a bad thing that he did, but he still did it. I also get angry when my, as I said, image gets attacked upon. I will also get angry. Why? Because I am not bridging the gap between my conscious existence and my unconscious existence. And when this gap is not bridged through Atmavad in any form, I gave you an example of soul searching through Hinduism. Every religion has a form of soul searching. And in fact, religions were born through these processes of soul searching. You look at every religion, right? You will find that the key concept to every religion is your connection with the Almighty. In the modern sense, we can say that your connection with the cosmos. Eventually, that is your connection with yourself and then with the cosmos. Now, that is consciousness. If I know what hurts me, and I know that I am the extension of the cosmos, and Arafat, you are the connection of the cosmos, then if I do something to you that causes anxiety in you, those waves will eventually travel back and cause anxiety to me. But that I have to train myself for that conscious existence. And when individuals who do not bridge this gap between the conscious and the subconscious, they become murderers themselves. Eventually, when this gap is there in a lot of individuals, the society becomes murderous. There are groups, there are mobs that become violent. They attack a person for having a particular faith. They attack a person for having a particular gender. They attack a person having a particular skin. If we try and catch all of these people and ask them, okay, if somebody has killed an individual who was from, say, any other religion, right? And this mob, these people who've killed him, they are all Hinduism. Now, say Hinduism, one of the persons in Hinduism is, say, Lord Ram. Now, if I catch all that mob who's abusing, who's violent, and I catch hold of them and I ask them, what you are doing in front of Lord Ram, can you argue your case? Will he approve of this? I'm not taking example of any other religion, but I'm just saying great men. Nanak would not approve of that. Will Prophet Muhammad approve of that? He was so compassionate that when that old lady used to throw all that garbage on him every day, and one day when she didn't throw, he took a basket of fruits and visited her. Right? That's the message that he's given. So when I use the word upasana, if I am doing upasana on Prophet Muhammad, what do? I learn this compassion from him. So eventually, I would know that that individual from that mob, if I stroke his conscious nature, even he would say what he did was wrong. But he did it because he was not in control. He was not in control of his own self. There were other sanskaras or other conditions. Eventually, oh, your religion is suffering, your religion is in danger, you must take up arms, and all these people talking about culture. These are not religious things, these are very insecure cultural things. So when you become blind to that, when you become numb to that, only then we see that all these individuals who are blind and numb, they form a society that is diseased, which is blind and numb, that is not open to hearing what other has to say, that is not open to looking at what others have to say. They just become numb. And if you look at them, it's a society that is completely suffering, not only within, not only on the others, but without, but not only without, but also within. One by one, all minorities are persecuted, are executed, and then eventually they themselves collapse. This is what we've seen historically, haven't we? So even a conscious history student, forget religious student, when he looks at history, would know this is not the behavior of humankind. But the problem is we have not trained people like that. We are not training our kids like that right now. So that is why Samvaad is very important, Atmavad is very important. Soul searching, eventually understanding the basic spiritual tenets of each and every religion is very important, and living them.
Thank you, Manu. That's what we often say, that people get so caught up, they get attached to the rituals and they forget the thing behind. And rituals are sometimes the enemy of the essence of religion as well. And that goes for all religions, of course. So we still have time for one more question or comment, if in case somebody wants to take
a very short one. Huh?
Yes.
A very short one, 3.5 minutes.
Yes. Okay. So James has a comment that it was quite an enjoyable session, and he enjoys hearing about other culture, religions, dialogues, etc.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much.
Okay, so since we don't have a question, Manu, I would officially like to thank you. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And I can never have enough of, every time I listen to you, I think I'm just revising, my entire Vipassana 10 days curriculum. So so it's always a pleasure, and it's just enlightening, not just in terms of dialogue that we do, as work, as peace builders, or as educators. There's some of our students are educators as well, but in general also, your sessions also help us put dialogue into our personal lives and into our conversations with our own selves. And thank you so much for
again.
Thank you.